Finance Minister Arun Jaitley first unveiled the concept of electoral bonds in the 2017 budget. They became available to those who want to donate to political parties from March this year. The promise was twofold. One, that it would curb cash donations and thus black money. And secondly, it would provide a cloak of secrecy to those who don't want anyone to know who they are donating to. But an investigation conducted by the Quint has brought the second claim under question. This investigation revealed that electoral bonds have a hidden alphanumeric code on them, not visible to the naked eye. In the second part of its investigation, the Quint has also reported that in the course of purchasing the bonds as part of the story, the reporter was asked for her Aadhaar, PAN card and passport details and told by the bank officer that the government is keeping a close watch on the sale of the electoral bonds. It's important to add here that the State Bank of India, which is authorized to sell these bonds, has responded to the story, saying that anonymity of donors is completely protected. But can we be really sure? To speak on this, I'm joined now by Jagdeep Chhokar of the Association of Democratic Reforms and Narendra Taneja of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Welcome to both of you and thank you for speaking with us today on Primetime Debate. And before we begin the discussion, let's hear from Poonam Agarwal, who has conducted that two-part investigation. Here she is with a special report on her findings from today.
On 5th of April, I went to the SBI branch in Parliament Street to purchase the electoral bond. I was asked to give all my KYC, like my passport, the Aadhaar card, and the PAN card number. I submitted to them the photocopy with self-attestation to all these documents, which is generally now required. When they saw, they asked for the original documents of the same. I gave them the Aadhaar card and the passport, but I did not have my PAN card because it was stolen few months ago. I told them the same reason, but the banker was just not ready to accept it. He said that he is getting all instructions from the Ministry of Finance saying that these are the important KYC and they cannot give the bond without the verification of these KYC. And then when I told him that he can very well verify my PAN card online, then he said he can do it. But he went on to say that, Madam, everything is being controlled by the Ministry of Finance. We are just the nodal agency who's giving out these schemes. Had you been an SBI customer, I would have still done this. But the scheme is on the behalf of the government. So we are getting all instructions from the government and those are being followed very strictly. And we don't have anything in our hands because we have to compile the entire transaction related to the bond by the end of the day. There you are. As per the notification, which clearly shows that SBI is supposed to do the sale and redemption of the bond, they are taking all instructions from the Ministry of Finance. Is there any doubt that they are not sharing the information about the donor? And the fact that the hidden number is there in this particular bond, which is being proven by the lab, it clearly shows that they are able to track the donor as well.
Mr. Chhokar, I'm going to come to you first because you are one of those people who has been raising this concern pretty much from the day that electoral bonds were first announced. What is your response to the details that have emerged in this story?
You see, this is actually, I would normally say this is very shocking, but in what has been going on pertaining to electoral bonds and political finance in general for the last many years, nothing shocks anymore. The fact is that the finance minister had actually said these will be in the nature of bearer bonds. The identity of the donor will be anonymous. Now that it has been found that there is a number engraved or printed on the bonds, and that it is hidden to the naked eye, and the buyer is not aware that there is a number on the bond, there is obviously a system or a method to track where are these bonds going. And this tracking seems to be done in a veil of secrecy. Now, anything like this, obviously in the climate that prevails in the country today, evokes suspicion. And that is obviously adds fuel to the fire in this case. Electoral bonds have already been under dispute by a lot of people. At one stage, even the Election Commission had said that these will not increase transparency. As a matter of fact, they will do exactly the opposite. And now that the number has been located, which is a hidden number, it raises serious doubts about the intentions of the government, whether they really want them to be anonymous or not. Even before, without the number, it was not impossible for the information about who has bought the bond to be communicated to the government and therefore to the party in power. Now it becomes even more so. So it seems to me, based on the sequence of events, that the intentions behind the electoral bonds are, I'm afraid I have to say that the intentions behind the bonds seem to be far from noble.
Mr. Taneja, I would like you to comment on this and especially taking into consideration the second part of the Quint story, where the reporter reveals that when she went to purchase these bonds, she was asked for her Aadhaar number, her PAN card number, her passport. In fact, there was an insistence on seeing the original documents. Isn't there a clear way now to connect the purchaser of the bonds to that specific bond, which can then be tracked thanks to the alphanumeric code on it?
You see, Tamanna, I think there are two important points here. I think if you are trying to suggest in your story or in your show that government is snooping and there is nothing like anonymity there, I think you are absolutely wrong. Because there is absolutely no reason for the government to be involved in such things in a matter like this, which is for different political parties. They know how the government function. The main opposition party, the Congress, they know pretty well how the government and various ministries and various banks and all these instruments function. They know it very well. You see, and that's what, you know, second thing is in your own story, the entire story that you have basically based on interaction between your reporter and some person in State Bank of India, who also seems to be a very chatty person. Nothing wrong with being chatty, but saying that, look, we have to take it from the government, we have to do. Some people are chatty and talk like this, probably.
Yeah, I don't
understand. I won't say anything more than that. But the bigger question here is, you see, the bigger question here is that, you know, just because it's carrying a number, your own reporter has spoken with State Bank of India, and they say this is just nothing, it's just a security feature. Bonds are financial instruments in all instruments worldwide. You just talk to any economy, any bank, I mean, they do carry certain features for security reasons. And when you are interacting with a bank these days, they do want to know who you are. And
no,
the instrument you're buying and all that. It's not a postcard.
Doesn't that defeat the purpose? Let me put aside the comment about the chatty bank officer, because it is the reporter's job to get as much information about a story as they can, and that was the attempt here. But let's just join the dots. Where is the anonymity? Because the bank is the repository of information of who bought the bond in the first place, and they have the information of where the bond went. It is a state-owned bank, which is why this question is being raised.
You see,
isn't it a valid question, Mr. Taneja?
No, Tamanna, we have to make a very clear division between the government and the bank. The government, of course, make policy. The government has come out with this initiative, and, you know, political parties and election commission, they were all consulted, you know, before you come out with such a scheme. And second thing is bank. They have their own way of looking at these instruments, and they basically want to make sure, I'm sure, that, you know, how do they go about the whole thing? And that's how the bank has decided to go about the whole thing. So now the question, are we... And bank, you know, probably would know better than you and me and many of your viewers that how these instruments should be handled. If we are questioning the bank, the biggest commercial bank in this country, that's, of course, you know, is your prerogative if you want to do that. But the question here is that, are there better ways? Probably people can give a feedback to the bank that there are better ways and they have some experience of other country. But if the whole idea is to suggest that Big Brother, snooping, surveillance and so on and so forth, just because you don't like, some people don't like BJP, or some people think that that's what the government is all about, is wrong and is absolutely nonsense. There is no other word.
Let me get Mr. Chhokar to respond.
To say that
the core of that argument, is that there is no real reason to believe that the information that the bank collects from those who are buying these bonds would be shared with anyone. Do you buy that argument, Mr. Chhokar?
Well, however implausible it may sound to Mr. Taneja, I, for one, do not believe that information with a state-owned bank, more so with a state-owned bank, even with a private sector bank, I don't think that information is confidential. I think that information is accessible to the Reserve Bank of India, and through the Reserve Bank of India to the Finance Ministry, and through the Finance Ministry to the party in power. The question is not whether party A is in power or whether party B is in power. The question is whoever is the government of the day has access to this information. Now, whether that access will be exercised, whether that access will be used or misused is a matter to be seen in the future. We have had a situation where a political party has said, I do not know if it is true, but they have said that they put up the details of their donors on the public domain and their donors were harassed. Now, it is a question of the word of one political party against another. To me, all political parties are the same, and when parties are in power, they have a tendency to do certain things which they would otherwise not do. We have seen this happen in legislation in Parliament. There are parties who opposed a particular piece of legislation when they were in the opposition, and when they come into power, they support and actively canvass for that legislation. So the opinions of political parties change. Electoral bonds are not an instrument that are exclusive to any one political party. They will be used all the time in future, and parties in power will change. And I don't find it worthwhile to trust any single political party today.
You know, it's important to put this in context. There was a report recently by the ADR which talked about, which was the richest party and earnings of various political parties. The BJP came out on top with over 1,000 crore rupees in declared income, 1,034 crore rupees in the financial year 16-17, an increase of 81% over the previous year. My point being, Mr. Taneja, that a party in power generally enjoys more donations. It usually does happen. But what is the need, or what is the way that the party in power today will dispel these concerns? Because these concerns do need to be dispelled.
You see, Tamanna, I don't claim that I'm very good at numbers. You probably are. But look at the story you were just talking about. A political party, our party, we're in power in 22 states directly or through in coalition. We have power at the center, and we also have membership of 11 crores. With that kind of background, you know how much we have got? We have got 1,034 crores in 2016-2017. Now, compare it with the main opposition party, that is a Congress party. Yes. Congress is in power not at the center. They don't have the kind of membership that we have, and they are in power only in 3.5 states,
it's more than everyone else combined.
And how much they have got? They've got 225 crore. No. I'm just giving you talking about the Congress numbers. Congress number. If you really don't look at in the absolute numbers, but actually Congress has got several times more than the Bharatiya Janata Party. In terms of, when you look at the presence of the party, footprint of the party, size of the party. So don't go by absolute numbers. If that your argument, if I buy your theory that the party in power actually attracts more, donation, then your theory is absolutely wrong. Then by that account, by that argument, actually we should have collected 7 or 8 times more, because we are much bigger in terms of our footprint, in terms of our, we are at the center, we are in 22 states.
Your collection is nearly 5 times the Congress party.
I'm just commenting on your theory. You are absolutely wrong. This theory is absolutely wrong.
No, the report is by the ADR. So I will take that to Mr. Chhokar. Those are numbers which have come from the income tax returns filed. So that is the basis of those numbers that ADR has put out. But my point being...
No,
No, I'm saying don't go by absolute numbers.
No, okay, Mr. Chhokar, the point of raising that report and those numbers is to highlight the fact that the party in power tends to get the lion's share. Now, the fear with electoral bonds is that even as they provide secrecy to donors, will there be a fear that if they give to the opposition parties, whoever it may be, and over time, not talking specifically about this government, that they may be penalized for that action? Isn't that the root fear at the end of the day?
You see, first of all, what Mr. Taneja referred to is not a story. It is a report based on the statement of income and expenditure submitted by political parties themselves. So this is a fact. If one goes or if one assumes that political parties, all of them, are giving correct information in the statement of income expenditure that they submit to the powers that be. So it is not a story, it is a fact, number one. Number two, the contention that since a particular party is in power in 22 states and the center, therefore it should get more money, I find this logic itself to be very, very dangerous. Why should power be related to donation? I wish donations were related to ideology. If my learned friend had said that the BJP's ideology is more popular, therefore more and more people donate to it, I would say that's perfectly fine. But the argument is because we are in power, therefore we get more money. Now, when you relate money to power, that is the biggest danger to democracy. Number three, that you asked about electoral bonds, as I said in my earlier statement, there was a doubt that electoral bonds, the moment they are purchased, even if they did not have a number, the information will reach the ruling party through Reserve Bank and Finance Ministry. And even before the person has had a chance to go to the political party to which he or she wanted to donate, they will get a phone call and be asked, you have bought an electoral bond, where do you plan to give it and why do you want to give it to anybody else? And there would be, I suppose, what might be called friendly persuasion to give it to the party in power. Now that was possible even without a number. Now there is a number which is hidden from the buyer. Now, if this does not raise suspicions in the minds of some people, well, I must say those people have an extremely trusting nature, which unfortunately some people in the country do not. And therefore, suspicion has been strengthened by this number discovery. Okay. As a matter of fact, as I wrote in my piece, the worst fears have come true.
Now, okay, let's look at what facts have been brought to light by this two-part story. And then let's start from there. So in the second part of the story, the journalist relates her conversation with the SBI official, whom Mr. Taneja thinks is too chatty, where he says that रोज डेटा कलेक्ट करके हमें शाम को आगे भेजना पड़ता है. आप समझ रही हैं ना कि कितनी सेंसिटिव चीज़ है. So he has to forward this data to someone. The finance ministry is keeping a tab on how the sale of electoral bonds is going. Now, Mr. Taneja, you could argue that it is, in routine of its regular work, that they're not asking for details of who are buying these bonds. But the leak, the possibility of the leak is there. Don't you think to make electoral bonds work and be trusted by people, that leak should be plugged?
No. You see, first of all, I think the entire your argument based on that chatty executive or a clerk, I don't know who that person is, of State Bank of India, that I have to report and all that. Look, if reporting at all is going to be only RBI, and if RBI is an autonomous organization, they don't report such things on regular basis to the Ministry of Finance, as my learned co-panelist said, then is reported to the political party. I mean, if you want to build such construct, such conjectures, there is no end to it. You can say even is reported to Pakistan and China. There is no end to it. But the question is, if you don't trust, you don't trust. Then you can actually say anything without. And the second point I want to make here is that my learned friend said that you are calling it a story. It's not a story, it's a fact. I was a journalist. I've been a journalist for a very long time. I must have produced thousands and thousands of stories. We go, take report, and in media, we call this stories based on the report produced by my London friend organization. But once in come in media, we use the term story. It doesn't mean story in the same sense as he might have read stories in fiction. No, story in media means what a journalist has written is called a story. It's not that, so probably he doesn't know this. And even, Tamanna, you have twice used the word story. So a story means based on your report, facts. But that's how we call it in media. It's called a story. Second point I want to say, Tamanna, you said lion's share has gone to BJP. It is not. Lion's share has gone to Congress. Look at the size of the party. So lion's share has gone to the Congress party. You can't go by absolute number. You have to look at the size of the party and then look at that. But in short, if one is trying to suggest that the ruling party being in power can take advantage of it or intimidate those people who are donating to other political party, then you are questioning the character and integrity of a political party. And there, if you hate the party, you can write volumes and volumes and do that. But if you don't understand the party, there is no end to it.
Bond, and that question has remained from day one, from the day it was announced. Question number one was why the cover of secrecy? Why should the Aam Janta or the public not know who is donating to whom, especially if it's a big corporate? We should know if they're donating to X, Y or Z party. That was question number one, which arose on day number one. Now the question after this report has become that is there a dual policy that the public won't know, but potentially those in government will? And that is a scary and difficult question.
You see, Tamanna, I know you're very proud of your story. I've been twice editor also and a journalist all my life. It's a very, very weak ground on which you're trying to construct this Qutub Minar. Okay. You see, first of all, the question here is that if you don't agree with the idea, there can be discussion and debate on that in political parties, election commission. You are absolute. You have within your right to question it. Absolutely, people must question it. There's no problem with that, and maybe come up with even better solution. The question is that's what we have come out with, and this has been presented in Parliament as part of the budget speech, and we also saw what other political parties have to say. Okay. The question is that even when you're doing it in the company which is going to donate, there would be at least 20-30 persons who would know what's going on, where the money is going. In bank, the similar situation, and so in any case, even you make it absolute secret, at least 100 people would know about it. At least minimum 100, because it has to go through the system of the company, the banking department, the State Bank of India, and then so all that. The point here I'm trying to make is that you're admitting,
Mr. Taneja, you are basically admitting to the story that you are questioning, sir. You are admitting that anonymity is not possible, even if the State Bank does not pass on those details. People in the company will know. At least 100 people will know. You've just said that. Anyway, let me get Mr. Chhokar.
No, I'm not questioning that. I'm not questioning that.
Let me get Mr.
All I'm saying is,
let me get Mr. Chhokar in. He's been listening patiently. 1 second. Let me get Mr. Chhokar in. He's been listening patiently. Let me play devil's advocate and say that okay, there is a hidden number on the bonds. It's a security feature. KYC documents are required in any banking transaction, and that is a fair requirement. Are we being too cynical and jumping the gun and assuming that there will be a situation where the dots are joined and then those who are giving large donations to X party will be questioned by Y party? Mr. Chhokar?
Well, in my assessment, the potential for such a risk is very much there, and it is not imaginary. But let me just say two things in addition to that. Number one, my co-panelist has already admitted that at the most it goes to the Reserve Bank of India. Now, earlier it was only with the State Bank of India, now it has gone to the Reserve Bank of India. And I have no doubt that from Reserve Bank of India to the Finance Ministry and from the Finance Ministry to the political party in power are very small steps. Number two, he has, as you, I guess, rightly said, he has already said that there is no anonymity. At least 100 people will know on a rough distribution, 50 in the State Bank and 50 in the company. Now, if there is no anonymity and 100 people know, Even in a large population country like India, 100 people is a fair number of people to get to know a sensitive information. Number 3, if the State Bank of India routinely reports these things to the Reserve Bank of India, then my contention as a member of the public would be that I, as a member of the public, would also like to have the same information that the Reserve Bank has, as to how many electoral bonds have been bought, worth how much, who has bought them, etc., etc., etc. Because in the information of transparency, in the regime or with an intention of transparency, why should this information be accessible to a select group of people, whoever they are? Political parties' income, because they say they work in the public domain, should be available to public at large.
Well, that was question number 1 about the electoral bonds that I was talking about.
Clerk or executive. No, let me complete this little bit about the chatty State Bank of India clerk or an executive. The State Bank of India employee should not talk to the public at all, should not give any information to the public at all. He or she should only give it to Reserve Bank of India, and that is a good government employee would be. Even an autonomous body employee does not share any information with the public. The Official Secrets Act is alive and well, and the RTI Act can go where it came from. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll allow Mr. Taneja a last counter to those points that have been raised.
You see, very quickly, you see, Tamanna, your viewers will recall, those who are watching your program, it was my co-panelist who said that from SBI it goes to RBI, RBI to Ministry of Finance, then to the ruling party. I just say if there is such reporting, I never said that. Never said that. I said the reporting he was talking about, I was commenting on that. I said, max, if it is happening because he claims is happening, it will go only to RBI. My comment was based on what he said, not my comment. I never said that. And the second point is that, as far as anonymity is concerned, because he says that don't trust anybody. He evidently he doesn't trust anybody. The point is, so I was just saying that if you are thinking in those terms, at least minimum these number of people would get to know anyway. So I'm commenting on that. But when government said anonymous, that means anonymous. That's it, period. But if you hate BJP, you hate all politicians, and you want to question the integrity of the party and the government. If that's your hobby and that's your business,
Mr. Taneja, let's stick to the facts of the story and what is in front of us. There are questions raised. There are serious, legitimate questions, and it is only fair to expect that these questions are answered by the government of the day. That is where I will end this conversation by thanking both of you. Thank you, Mr. Taneja and Mr. Chhokar, for your time on Primetime Debate.